All right, let's dive into a really cool evolutionary mystery. We're going to unpack how some animals can just walk away from a dose of snake venom that should be absolutely lethal. I mean, look at this. This is the classic showdown, right? You've got a cobra armed with this incredibly potent neurotoxic venom, and then you have a mongoose who just seems completely unimpressed. A single bite from that snake should cause total paralysis and then death. And yet, so often, the mongoose survives and actually wins the fight.
So what is going on here? How is that even possible? Is the mongoose just, quicker on its feet? Or is there something much, much deeper happening on a molecular level? Well, it turns out the secret is written right into its genes.
To really get the mongoose's secret, we need to zoom out first and look at the big picture. Because this isn't just about one single fight, oh no. This is part of an epic chemical arms race that has been raging for millions and millions of years all across the tree of life.
And the key idea we need to wrap our heads around is something called convergent evolution. This is what happens when nature, faced with the same problem, comes up with the exact same solution in totally unrelated species. Like wings on a bird and wings on a bee. They got there from different starting points, but they do the same job. This idea, it's everything for solving our venom mystery. And this arms race, it's an incredibly powerful engine for evolution. So a predator develops a better weapon, right? A more potent toxin. Well, that puts a ton of pressure on the prey to develop a better defense, a stronger shield. And this constant back and forth is what drives the evolution of both the venom and the resistance to it.
Okay, quick sidebar, but this is really important. We tend to use the words venom and poison like they're the same thing, but biologically they are not. Venom is injected, think snake fangs. Poison is something you have to ingest or absorb. So the neurotoxins we're talking about today, they are all part of a venomous cocktail.
Okay, so let's zoom way in. We're going from the battlefield right down to the scene of the crime at the molecular level. This is where the real action is happening. So this right here, this is our target. It's a receptor on a muscle cell, and its fancy name is the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor, or NACR. For short, the easiest way to think about it is that it has a binding site that works like a lock, and the snake's neurotoxin, well, that's the perfectly shaped key that's designed to fit right into it.
So in any animal that isn't resistant, here's what goes down. The toxin, the key, slides right into that receptor lock. This totally blocks the normal signals that are supposed to go from your nerves to your muscles. The result is paralysis, and eventually you can't breathe. It's an incredibly efficient and deadly system.
So how in the world do you beat that? Well, the evolutionary solution is it's brilliantly simple. You can't get rid of the lock, right? The receptor is absolutely essential for your muscles to work. So instead, you just change the lock. A tiny genetic mutation alters its shape just enough so the toxin's key doesn't fit anymore. You mutate the lock, you block the key, and you survive the attack. Simple as that.
And what's truly amazing is that evolution seems to have a couple of favorite ways of doing this. The first trick is basically a bulky block. A mutation sticks a big, clumsy sugar molecule right next to the binding site, so it physically gets in the toxin's way. The second trick is more of a warped lock. Mutations swap out key building blocks, amino acids, which changes the actual shape of the lock itself. Either way, the key just doesn't fit anymore.
Now, this is where it gets really mind-blowing, because this isn't just the mongoose's trick. Evolution has stumbled upon this exact same solution, the same hack over and over and over again in completely different animals.
And here's the proof. These are evolutionary family trees. Every single one of those colored lines represents a different animal that figured out how to resist venom all by itself. We see it in mongooses, yeah, but also honey badgers, hedgehogs, and, get this, even a ton of snakes. They all independently came up with the same solution. This is convergent evolution in action, and it is spectacular.
And just to really hammer this point home, if you look at snakes alone, that specific bulky block trick, it has evolved on its own at least 6 separate times. It's like 6 different inventors who've never met, all creating the exact same invention to solve the same problem. Incredible!
So what this tells us is that even though mutation might seem random, evolution is often working with a pretty limited but very effective set of tools. These resistance mutations just keep popping up at the same few spots on the receptor. And the reason is simple. There are only so many ways you can change the lock without actually breaking it.
But, there's no such thing as a free lunch, especially in evolution. This molecular superpower, well, it doesn't come for free. There's almost always a trade-off.
And the European adder is a perfect example of this. So its ancestors, they were resistant to these neurotoxins. But today, the snakes that carry those specific toxins, they're gone from its habitat. The threat is gone. And because that shield was no longer needed, research shows the mutation is actually reversed. The adder literally lost its superpower.
And this quote from the research really explains why. Messing with a critical receptor, even just a tiny bit, can come with what's called a fitness cost. Maybe it makes the receptor just a little less good at its normal everyday job. So if the venomous threat disappears, natural selection actually favors going back to the original, more efficient version. There is a price to be paid for that power. Which brings us to a final, really big question. We usually think of evolution as this random, unpredictable branching process. But when you see this widespread convergence, the same molecular tricks being used again and again, it really suggests that for certain problems, there are only a handful of good solutions. So if evolution's playbook has so many repeat plays, does that mean the path of life might be a little more predictable than we've ever thought?